Good afternoon, Americans for Prosperity. Good afternoon, Americans across the country tuning in live today to join us here to talk about important issues. We are joined today by Stephen Utroska, our absolutely incredible state director in the state of Mississippi. And we're joined by a special guest who's going to talk us through one of the key debates on Capitol Hill, one of the key debates in the United States Senate. We're here to talk about the freedom of expression. We're here to talk about S1, HR1, otherwise known as the For the People Act. And we're going to tell you today why it is not for the people. And we're going to let Stephen kick us off and introduce us to our special guest.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So I'm proud to be with Americans for Prosperity Mississippi, the state director here. I'm proud that we have a great senator that has joined us today to talk to us. Senator Roger Wicker has represented Mississippi in the U.S. Senate since 2007. He was formerly the chairman and is now ranking member of the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, continues to do great things up there. So, Senator, thank you for joining us today to talk about HR 1 and S1 and the train wreck of legislation that it is coming down and some of the issues that it could have for not only Americans, but Mississippians. So thank you for joining us.
Well, glad to join in, and I'm happy to proceed in any way that you would like. But we certainly are trying to. We're not only trying to educate the public about S1 and HR1, but we're trying to stop it because we really think this is something that has historically been done by the states and should be done continue under our system of federalism. But I'll be happy to go through various proposals and hear what folks are saying about it.
Sure, yeah, and we'd just like to ask you a couple questions. So I'll start out, and then I'll let Chris ask you a question. But I just want to ask you first, as we get started, do you believe that just as Americans have the right to cast ballots in private, we also have the right to support causes and join groups, make donations without being monitored by the government? I think you do believe that, and we should believe that. And so how will this bill, HR1, S1, how will it erode those rights that we have as not only Americans?
I think the disclosure provisions are an attempt basically to intimidate people not to contribute to groups like yours, for example, or groups on the political right that have a point of view. And I view it as coercion. But you know what? If California wants to pass a law like that, let them hash that out in California. They might want to have a initiative about that. If I were there, I'd vote against it. But the main thing I'm saying is the last thing we need is to impose something like this on a federal, national level and make every single jurisdiction comply with that. But it is a matter of privacy. It's a matter of individual choice and being able to have a role in advocacy without somebody calling you up from the union or from the church or wherever and putting a bit of coercion on you about it. And I know that's where you're coming from on this issue. It's a part of S1 and HR1 that we don't hear quite as much about. But I think Americans for Prosperity are speaking out on that. And to the extent that we are opposed to any provision, we're opposed to that provision also. And again, let's have honest elections. Let's have secure elections. Let's encourage as many people to vote as possible, as they did last year in record numbers. But let's let that decision be made at the state level.
Senator, I just want to take a quick second and remind everybody who's watching that down in the comment section down below, they can take action on HR1, on S1 to assist you and your colleagues in communicating our opposition to this legislation. So I encourage everyone watching across the country, those folks in Mississippi, take action now. You can see down below in the comment section. But I just want to tee off another question, Senator. Do you believe it should be easier for Americans to engage in speech? I assume you do, but specifically about the issues they care about. And that seems to get lost in this discussion. And could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yes, it should be, and the Supreme Court has ruled that that political discourse, that political advertising is speech under the First Amendment, and I'm all in favor of protecting that in my role as a federal legislator. So yes, I mean it's an easy question, but if you ask someone on the political left about that, they start hemming and hawing because they're all for free speech. But then when you point out that there is an intimidation and coercion factor, maybe they're not quite in so much agreement there. So we have a big divide on this issue. But let me also say this: we're limited on time, so they're in about 17 minutes they're going to run in and grab me here. Part of this is maintaining the 60-vote consensus filibuster that we've had for decades and decades, if not centuries, in the United States Senate. And I feel better about that issue than I did maybe a week ago. Two Democrats have come out and made very explicit statements. One of them in writing, Senator Manchin, that there should be no weakening of the filibuster. And then the Senator Sinema came in and basically agreed with that in an interview. To the extent we can keep this consensus building 60-vote requirement, we can leave these, we could defeat S1, and we can leave these decisions to the states, including the decision on free speech and not being subjected to coercion.
Yeah, I agree with that, Senator. And just for the our viewers, I want to kind of expand on that some and ask you to expand on that some about the filibuster. What does that mean for specifically for us, for Mississippians? What does that mean that we get to keep that filibuster, and how do we use that to defeat this bill like HR1, S1, or other bills that we may not agree with? There's the infrastructure bill that's come out that I think you publicly come out and said some things about that as well. But how do we use the filibuster, and what does that mean to us to make sure that we keep that and we secure that right?
It means at least two things. For one thing, it means we could talk about it fully and have extensive public debate. And when we do, eventually the truth filters out to the American people. So it is a mechanism for full and complete and fair debate. And it separates us from, it really separates the Senate, makes it unique and different from really any other legislative body really in the world, including the House of Representatives, which we can do. They can enact something by 218 to 217 vote, and that's great. I used to be in the House, and that's the way it was. But also, in addition to the full debate, we are the body that brings about national consensus. And what have we accomplished during the time when we've had to come up with consensus? The 1964 Civil Rights Act was done with the filibuster in place. Finally, enough senators got together, understood it, public opinion galvanized, and Civil Rights Act was passed. Voting Rights Act of '65 was passed. Before that, Social Security, one of the things that really our senior citizens look to, and where they don't have to worry about poverty and old age, that was done with this super requirement. And actually back then it was 67 votes. Medicare was passed with this consensus building thing. So what I'm saying is, and there was a great article by a great staffer who I served with and who worked as a staffer when I was a senator. I was his co-worker back when we worked for Trent Lott, and then he worked as a staffer when I got over here as Dave Hoppy. It was in the Wall Street Journal just yesterday or the day before, that actually it was the filibuster that enabled this country to come together and agree on the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So I mean, to the extent we've got something special that causes us to come together to do big things, it would just be such a tragedy to throw that away after all these decades and years.
Yeah, I think that's right. And people who are watching, viewers who may not be that involved in the political process or know, you guys, the Senate, you are the upper chamber. Your rules don't have to match what the House rules are. You have different rules, and I think, just like you said, I think that's that's such a monumental thing that the upper chamber has to be able to secure legislation and fully talk about legislation in ways that the Senate has always used that to benefit the American people and certainly, again, Mississippians here. So I appreciate that.
And just two other examples in recent days, during the Obama administration, the Senate came together and abolished No Child Left Behind and replaced it with Every Student Succeeds. There were objections to that bill, certainly on the right, because we heard it back when we went back to our own states. But also the teachers' unions had problems with it also, and we came together, and this was during a Republican Senate and a Democrat in the White House, and passed a repeal of No Child Left Behind by way over 60 votes. People don't remember this, but on a veterans reform bill, there was Bernie Sanders working with former Senator Johnny Isakson in Georgia on a huge, I think, benefit for the veterans of this country. And again, a left-wing Democrat working with a Republican to do something big and allow choice for veterans who preferred not to go to that VA facility. A lot of them do, but allowed them to choose to use a doctor locally instead of having to go to the government-owned facility. We did that by overcoming a filibuster, and it just, we talked about it enough and came to consensus and worked like the Senate ought to work. I'm going on and on about that. I do want to say, can I mention that the public is on our side on S1 and HR1. Politicians are able to engage in hyperbole, we all do it. But when Joe Biden says that what's happening in Georgia is a Jim Crow or Jim Crow on steroids, it's more than exaggeration. It's more than hyperbole. It's a flat lie. It's a flat lie. And but Georgia is trying to make sure they're replacing a signature verification with voter ID, photo ID. And I'll tell you, you ask in a poll, and I've got a poll here, whether Americans are for voter ID, and I don't care whether it's Democrats, Republicans, Independent, or vegetarian, 72% of Americans are for voter ID. We're on the right side of this issue. S1 would make voter photo ID illegal in every state in the union. Can you imagine that? And I think we're going to win. We're going to win because the voters are on our side. I don't know. Do you want me to talk about ballot harvesting?
Senator, if I might,
yeah.
I hear that bell ringing in the back, which means you're going to get called soon. And I will tell you, this is a topic we could explore for quite some time. Right. You know what you've said, I think, is the most valuable lesson for our viewers who don't understand these issues as well as you, who are knee deep in it every day. You, like the voters, don't fear the debate. And whether it is S1, HR1, whether it's thinking through the filibuster, Americans, good principled members like yourself, do not fear the debate. And I
Let the
think
truth shine.
that is a passionate and practical way to appreciate the governance structure we have in this country and the blessings it bestows upon us. I don't want to get away from it. I know Stephen's got one more really important question, Senator, if you don't mind hitting that one out of the park before we wrap up here. And they shuttle you off to the floor.
They bring out a hook.
Yeah, and so this is an easy question. Yeah, the question is just, do you believe in privacy rights? And with privacy rights, when we have a freedom of speech, part of that freedom of speech is supporting organizations like Americans for Prosperity to give you that voice. And so what does that mean to you? And what would this bill do? Or how do you see that going down if this bill is passed?
If I want to write a $50 or $200 contribution to Americans for Prosperity, I ought to be able to do that without my name being in the paper. And I think everybody listening here agrees with that.
Well, Senator,
that's one way that we're for privacy.
Good.
I think
Freedom of expression.
I think that's spot on, Senator. I'm going to ask you one last question. Again, our activists, the folks watching, please take action in the link below. But, the 117th Congress is fraught with challenges. What can you tell our grassroots that are watching you today? What excites you? It seems like a terrible time, but what excites you? And where does the optimism or hope for the American people lay? Give us something to walk away. We can sink our teeth into.
There's a lot to be concerned about. And a lot of it is self-inflicted by this administration. We had a long discussion today at our Republican Party caucus meeting about what's going on the southern border. I mean, it's terrible, and it's not only bad for our country as a whole. It's bad for the individual boys and girls that are being abused and taken advantage of there on the cuff. So I worry about that, and obviously all of this deficit spending and bill after bill with trillions rather than billions. It's enough to worry about. I tell you though, I still get a lump in my throat when I realize we're still the shining city on a hill that Reagan talked about, and I was with the president the other day. He honestly thinks we're a superpower in decline. That's possible if we keep going down this road, but I just don't think that's America. I don't accept that we're way behind the rest of the world. I mean, I may have been my video. Somehow my video went off, but
You're back.
I just don't accept that we're a declining superpower, and I certainly don't accept that we have to be. So when I think that I have an opportunity to shape policy and to defend rights and time-honored principles in the greatest system of representative government that has ever been devised by the mind of man, that is still exciting for this white-haired guy from Pontotoc, Mississippi. Well, folks, you've heard it here. That is a heck of a note to end on. We're joined today by United States Senator Wicker, and sir, this has been a pleasure. We're joined here today by Stephen Utroska, the state director in Mississippi. I'm Chris Hudson, Vice President of Americans for Prosperity, and I'm asking all of you guys to tune in, like, follow, share this message at the end, this actual optimistic message. An individual who truly understands the challenges we're facing is fighting the good fight in the United States Senate. Follow him, follow our team, and United States Senator Wicker, we appreciate you and thank you for your time today. Thank you.